This episode, this episode is a break from all the previous events in my life leading up to where we are now. And I think it's going to be a bit of a stretch for a lot of people to go along with, to accept that it really happened. But there's nothing I can do to help that, so I'll just go ahead and describe what happened. As I said in the last episode, I had to leave Yale because I relapsed with mental illness. I became homeless. The homelessness began when I was in Claremont, California. The last person I was able to stay with was my grandmother, Betty Wilt, who was from a long line of Americans. Her family came here, the King family, in the 1600s, so they have a family tree made up recently. So it's a long time. She knows the country very well. She and her family does, and through her, so do I. So I stayed with her for several days, but she couldn't afford to keep me, so I had to leave. I got a place for a while after that, but that didn't last long, so I left. And at that point, I was homeless. I was homeless in Claremont. I was very optimistic. I didn't know what the future was. It was a very different time in my life. I felt good. I didn't feel psychotic. I was operating pretty straight-headedly, and I proceeded to attempt to survive. There were orange trees. It was Southern California. Claremont is near Los Angeles, and it's a warm climate. And this was in January, but it was warm, so I was able to eat a few oranges off the trees, and found places to sleep. But the thing that makes this episode why it has to get its own episode is that one evening during this time I was walking by downtown Claremont on Yale Street, as a matter of fact. There was a church. There was a Protestant church, and it was rather cold that night, so I decided to try to get in out of the weather, and I tried the door on the church, and it was open, so I walked in. There was nobody there. I sat down in a pew in the sanctuary, and I planned on staying there all night. And but I didn't go to sleep. I just sat in the pew, just quietly, just respectfully of the space. And I had been there for several hours, just sitting there, and something odd happened. On my left, right beside me, I heard a voice, a deep voice, a human, deep, normally spoken, a real voice. This was, if there had been someone there next to me, that's what I would have expected it to sound like. And what it said was, I didn't look upon it as particularly unusual. I just took it in a matter-of-fact way. It said, "Does he wish to be an initiate?" And, okay, I heard that. That's interesting. So I just continued to sit there, and then right away, on my right side, a different voice, also very deep and very powerful voice, also very real, said, "He does." Does he wish to be an initiate? He does. And this was right around me, so who could they be talking about but me? They're talking about me. And this related, as it turns out, to the view of life that I had received, although I didn't necessarily accept it at the time, just before my nervous breakdown, when I was told about the masters of the wisdom, as they're called, who are powerful, super powerful people who have the interests of humanity at heart, and are able to operate even though they have no physical body. And that's what this was. And I later learned that initiation into the society of these people takes the form of one master on your left side, one master on your right, and they say various things that have the effect of bringing you into their group. And that's what this was. So take it or leave it. That's what happened to me. That's the way I'm recounting it. That's the way it happened. So if you believe it, that's your belief. If you don't believe it, that's your belief too. So I continued to sit there after that. I didn't say anything. There was nothing for me to say. There was no script for me to take part in. They were the ones doing the talking. So I continued to sit there throughout the night. Eventually, I said, "Well, it's time to go. It's time to go." So I got up and I left the building. As I was leaving the sanctuary, a small voice, not like these voices, these other voices of initiation, a small voice like what you would hear in psychosis, speaking to you. You're hearing voices. It said, "The baptism of fire," and sort of seemed to give a little smile as it said that, with a lot of pregnant feeling, not pregnant for giving birth, but portents to come. So I was pretty sure I was in for some rough riding, but that whoever was behind it felt I could get through it. So that's why I was being led in that direction. So I left the building, and that was my initiation. And I continued to survive. I left Claremont in a short while. I hitchhiked back to Santa Cruz because I felt I might be able to survive better there, since I knew the town a little bit from having been a student there. And the first day I got back to Santa Cruz, I went back to campus, and I that evening I had gone to a food pantry, and I got some free food, and I was carrying with me. And that night I walked back into the redwoods. The campus is located in the middle of the redwoods, redwood trees, enormous old trees, very, very tall trees, and they usually grow in circles. One of them grows and then it drops its seeds and all in around itself, and so the new growth comes in. They're in circles. And so I went back into the redwood forest. I was carrying this box of food, and I kept walking back and back. Not deep enough. I'm not deep enough. Kept going back farther. I want to get far away. I want to go deep into the forest because this is my first day in Santa Cruz. I want to be secluded. So I kept walking. Then finally I got back. I said, "This is far enough." I took the food and I took it out of the box, and I didn't need it. I felt I didn't need it. I was going to be able to survive. I wanted to do something as a gesture. So I took the food and I poured it out onto the ground, forming the letters of the word love. And this was my statement of love for the environment. Let the animals come and eat it from the, in the days to come. This is my gift to them. This is my gift of love to the forest. Then I walked out a little bit farther because I felt I needed to make a statement, not of words, but just of action. So I went even farther back into the forest, and I stood there and I waited. And I thought to myself, I'm just about as far away from the moment of my birth as I have ever been in my life. And what gesture can I make at this point? I stepped forward once. I took one step forward. And that was my gesture, just to step forward. I didn't need to. It wasn't sensible in any general sense, in any social sense, but it was a step forward. I took that step forward, and I stood there for a while. And then I went back to my camp, back where I had left the food, and I lay down in a redwood circle among the redwoods, right nested right at the feet of these giant trees. And I went to sleep. I would lay down to go to sleep. And as soon as I was ready for sleep, and I was all curled up, I was in a fetal position, I was curled up, my entire universe was replaced by somebody else's universe. Just like that. I was in another body and another place and time that was just as real as my body, as I had grown to know it. It was an enormous man, a male, enormous, huge, muscular body, fighting with a woman who was really the aggressor. The aggressor was the woman fighting against me in this body. For some reason related to something that had just happened. My thoughts were a little bit with that person. I knew a little bit about what had happened, just in a kind of a general vague sense. And something about his life I knew a little bit about just in a general vague sense. I was sharing his life, so I didn't have the whole thing. I was partially myself and partially him in a sense, but I was living his life. This woman was struggling. It was in a rough-hewn environment, indoors, like it had been carved out of stone. There was a door behind us, and there was a stair behind her and in front of me going down. And this woman slipped and fell down the stairs. Ka-jump, 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 ka-jump. All of a sudden, she just fell down the stairs and fell in a heap at the bottom of the stairs. This man at that point went through a crisis because he didn't know if he should go to tend to her in her being hurt by this, or if he should flee, because if people should walk in, they would blame her for maybe for her death if she died. He might be blamed for it, and he didn't think that he could provide a sufficient explanation that would be believed, so he went through a crisis. He had a decision. Does he stay or go? Does he flee or does he remain with the woman? And at that point, I returned to my own body. But I shared all of that experience with him as if I was with him. I was sharing part of his mind. And as the moment that I got back to my own life, myself, I fell asleep. So it was just a bang, bang, like that. The new experience and then sleep. So, and then when I woke in the next morning, I had that experience with me, part of my own life that I had lived with another person. And I had read a book when I was studying physics in Santa Cruz called Initiation that a friend of mine had given to me. It was about some woman who had gone through an initiation of some type, and she had these visions, being in the body of another person. As it happened for her, she believed she was back in Egypt, and she was the daughter of the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh had married her because they didn't have many people that married that in those days. And so my understanding was that when you go through an initiation, at some point you have visions. You have you live in other people's bodies, which some people interpret as previous lifetimes. I don't know if I believe that myself, but I understand that the Greek sage, whose name was Pythagoras, who was reportedly became a priest, took the initiation in Egypt for the priesthood. He reportedly had visions. He said that he had memories of previous lives, and these were probably experiences that he had of visions in the same manner that I had this man, this powerful man. So that was the first vision that I had. It was not the last. I had many others, and I had another one right away in downtown Santa Cruz. I was downtown on the street talking to two Jehovah's Witnesses ladies. And as I was talking to them, I suddenly became part of another body. It was a woman's body. She was standing next to her mate, and they were looking with a couple of other couples it was outdoors. They were looking at a man sitting on a throne, and he was the king. And this was a very slowly evolving moment, and she fainted. She fell. That was that memory. That was the second vision that I had. And I've had others since that. I've had about almost 20, I think. And they're really a mystery as how they affect my life in the future. Uh, Whether they portend the future, whether they happened in the past, just what they mean, it remains a mystery. But I'm pretty sure that they are a part of whatever it was that happened to me when this man on the left said, "Does he wish to be an initiate?" And there was the answer. Uh, it's a real mystery. And that's the end of this episode.